Imagine that luck seems to have never been in your favor. A few years ago, your parents lost their lives in an unexpected accident. And destruction appears to you again, to give you the news that you have been diagnosed with a cancerous brain tumor. One night, after drinking too much, you go up to the roof and ask the heavens to end your suffering by destroying the world, and this time, your cry was answered. His words invoke a mysterious celestial being whose name means destruction. He is an intermediary between humans and the heavens. The man arrives and tells you that he can fulfill your desires if you are willing to pay an ultimate price. In the end, you end up accepting, and they make a deal. You can live the life you dream of for 100 days, after which the angel of death will take your soul. However, as he gets to know this incredible mortal, the man begins to fall in love with her, which results in complications in relations between humans and the immortal kingdoms. I'm Nina, and in today's recap we will watch Doom at your service. The episode begins with the protagonist discovering that she has a brain tumor. Dong Jaeyoung can't take a week off to do the biopsy, and the doctor tries to explain to her that with the surgery she will have a year to live, and without it, only 3 or 4 months. As she is leaving the doctor's office, the protagonist bumps into a man in a lab coat, and he tells her that he knows how handsome he is, but he is busy at the moment. A man ended up claiming victims with a knife in the city and began a rush at the hospital to treat patients. Whoever committed the crime tried to take his life afterwards. However, they managed to stop him, and the paramedics stopped the bleeding. The man in the lab coat told the nurse to close the curtains around the bed and only let the police pass when they arrived. He approaches the perpetrator of the crime and says that the man has no authority to take people's lives, only his. Since the criminal carried out such an act, the man will leave him alive until the moment he chooses to take his life and, in the end, heal the patient's open wound. Then the police arrive to supervise him. The man goes to visit a woman. She tells him a metaphor and says that he is the butterfly in her garden. He says that it's sad to quote these words on his birthday, and the woman rebuts him, saying that the man didn't even have a birth or is a person to celebrate his birthday. Returning to the protagonist, she is going to meet a writer. When she receives a call from her boyfriend, he says in a hurry that he needs to meet her. At the designated location, Dong Jaeyoung ends up getting water in his face. The reason was because the man who asked him to be his girlfriend is married, and his wife discovered the betrayal. However, this is news to the protagonist too, but the woman doesn't want to believe it. Trying to make his pregnant wife better, she decides to take responsibility and take the blame for herself. However, the woman starts to feel sick, and Dong Jaeyoung takes her to the hospital. After the wife is medicated and is better, she explains herself to the protagonist. She says that trying to find someone to blame other than her husband was the easiest way to maintain the marriage, but it was not the right way. When he arrives at work, Dong Jaeyoung gets scolded by his boss for taking so long in the meeting. And while he is browsing the internet, he notices that there is a video where the protagonist appears. She is in the cafe with a woman who accuses her of having an affair with her husband. For a moment, Dong Jaeyoung freaks out and yells at his boss, then tells him he's taking the day off. The protagonist is heading home to the station and receives a message warning that a man is filming her. When he is confronted about it, as soon as the doors open, the man runs out, and Dong Jaeyoung follows. She begins a chase but soon stops because a crater has opened in the ground and sucked the boy in. At night, the protagonist receives a call from her brother asking for a favor. He borrows a considerable amount of money, and the two end up arguing because today is the anniversary of their parents' deaths, and he doesn't even show respect for it. At home, Dong Jaeyoung prepares dinner and eats a cake with a photo of his parents in front of him. Then his aunt calls to catch up and is happy when she hears that the protagonist is happy and healthy. Dong Jaeyoung goes up to the roof with a bottle of drink in her hands and starts making wishes when shooting stars pass by. In her wishes, she asks for the world to end. Meanwhile, the man she had bumped into earlier, who was wearing a lab coat, listens to the protagonist's desires and decides to fulfill them. Dong Jaeyoung is sleeping when someone rings his doorbell early in the morning. When she sees her, it turns out to be the doctor she bumped into earlier in the hospital, the one she thought was a kitten, and the man had bragged about it. The protagonist thinks about how handsome he is again, and the boy says he knows, as if he were listening to her thoughts. His name is Mile Mang, which can mean misfortune or destruction. Mile Mang tells her to make her wish before her birthday is over. However, the protagonist begins to think that she is hallucinating everything that is happening and believes it is the tumor's fault. To give her time to process and think, he leaves the place, but he left it marked on her calendar that he will lose his life in 100 days. Later, when he gets home, Mile Mang invades Dong Jaeyoung's dream and brings her to her residence. She tries to escape. However, when she opens the door, it is higher than the clouds, and then he changes the location to a beach. Mile Mang explains that Mother Nature designed him, and even though he tried to destroy the world alone, humans have power over him, so suddenly it works with Dong Jiyoung's help. The protagonist's alarm clock starts to ring, and she wakes up, not knowing if it was really a dream or reality. Throughout the day, Dong Jiyoung starts meeting him in various places, including at work, posing as a writer. The protagonist, after talking for a while, decides to escape that situation and says that she will go out to meet another writer. On the way, Dong Jiyoung starts to feel severe pain in her head, which leads her to stop in the middle of the street and almost get run over by a truck. However, Mile Mang stops time and makes a proposal to the protagonist he will save her if she closes the deal. The woman accepts, and everything around her begins to go back in time as they walk to the cafe. Dong Jiyoung cannot let go of Mile Mang's hand, otherwise, he will lose his life, so he puts a bracelet on her wrist, which appears to be a red string, to symbolize their agreement, and she will have to carry it throughout the night. Her, holding the man's hand. Mile Mang goes to prison to deal with that man he made live. The boy is trying to take his life, but Mile Mang stops him from doing that and repeats once again that only he will decide when the man will lose his life. Dong Jiyoung is going to see her friend, who is a writer, and on the way she receives calls from her ex-boyfriend, who she recently discovered has a wife, and because she wants to keep her distance, she doesn't answer. Her friend ended up losing her text in a blackout that was caused by Mile Mang, and the protagonist convinces her to start over and deliver it on time, otherwise, she will lose more and more readers. Dong Jiyoung decides to go to the grocery store to buy some decent things for the two of them to eat. At the store, she receives a call from her doctor. The man warns her that if she doesn't do anything about it, she will start to feel more and more pain and more strength. Mile Mang goes to visit her friend in the hospital. If he is the end, she is like God, and when asked why he was chosen, the girl just replies that it is destiny. He is cruel to everyone. The protagonist keeps receiving calls from her ex-boyfriend and not answering them, so the man sends her a message saying that he will regret this and that he is at the door of his office. When Dong Jiyoung arrives at the scene, the man is holding a sign and shouting that she is a homewrecker. The two end up fighting, and she tries to get him out of the place. However, she ends up getting more and more stressed and hearing horrible things about how she doesn't have parents, and that's why she's strange. His co-workers protect him and take him out, but the creature returns to the office and only leaves when his wife searches for him and drags him by the ears. The protagonist tries to deliver a letter of resignation to the colleague who took over as her boss while he travels, but the man doesn't accept it. Mile Mang appears to Dong Jiyoung, and when she asks what would happen if she backed out of the deal, she finds out that someone else would take her place, the person she loves most at the moment. The protagonist gets angry when she finds out, so Mile Mang puts them in the truck situation again and asks if she would do it differently. At Dong Jiyoung's house, her brother appears, and she remembers her Angel of Destruction's words that another would take her place, so she hugs her youngest. The next day, the protagonist goes out with her friend and says that she will not move on from this to a better one before she takes off in her career as a writer. Mile Mang goes to visit her friend Deus in the hospital, and upon arrival, she discovers that the doctors are reviving the girl. When she is stable, the man asks her what kind of being she is that is sick and sad all the time, so the girl replies that someone needs to pay the price for the things that happen in the world. Mile Mang goes to meet Dong Jiyoung. She is taking a photo to put in a frame. The two walk to the protagonist's house, and Mile Mang explains that he is just a button for the end. With every movement and breath that the man takes, some misfortune happens, and that is the reason for his existence. And if he decides to do nothing, hell will ensue on earth. When they arrive in front of Dong Jiyoung's residence, they are surprised by the presence of the girl's ex-boyfriend there. He says he is sorry and wants to be with her. The man starts to hug her, and the protagonist tries to let go. However, he is unable to do so, and her painting ends up falling to the floor and breaking the glass protection. Mile Mang decides to intervene and tells her to go inside, and he will sort it out. He introduces himself to his ex-boyfriend as Dong Jiyoung's current boyfriend, and the woman is surprised. When things are calmer, the protagonist makes a proposal. She invites him to live together, and Mile Mang accepts. The protagonist, shortly after she made the proposal, goes to the bathroom of her house to wash her face and regrets having made the invitation. However, when she opens the door, she changes her mind again. Mile Mang thought her apartment was too small, so she decided to bring her house inside. From the outside, it will look like the same place, but when you enter, it is much bigger. Dong Jiyoung confesses that she asked him to live together because she thought that the moment he left, he would disappear forever. Because she is used to people who are good to her leaving her life. Changing the subject, the protagonist wants to know where her bedroom will be, as there are several in the house, and she discovers when she opens the doors that they don't lead anywhere. It's as if they reflect the room. Her brother rings the doorbell, and Dong Jaeyoung goes to the penthouse. The two talk to the aunt who raised them. After they hang up the call, Sun Jaeyoung says that when she was chasing her sister's cheating ex-boyfriend, he had divine help, and the man ended up running over. Of course, the boy at least called 911. The protagonist's brother knows that because she went out with a married man, it was because he deceived her, as she is not one to do that, and the boy feels obliged to meet this current boyfriend to find out if someone else is deceiving her. To better know his verdict on whether the current one is good or not, Sun Jaeyoung invites him to drink. However, the boy ends up drunk and, in the end, gives the two of them a blessing to date. After the protagonist's brother leaves, Mile Mang divides the houses half and half, his on one side and hers on the other. To keep an eye on his new roommate, Dong Jaeyoung will sleep on the living room couch. The next day, when she is thinking about the terms of the contract she signed, the protagonist realizes that the person she loves will lose his life anyway, whether it will be because Dong Jaeyoung breaks the contract or because he wishes for the apocalypse. Meanwhile, the boy that the protagonist's writer friend had a crush on when she was younger was called to attend a meeting, with the members of her school days and her friends telling him that Na Ji Na would appear too. The writer uses his name as her pseudonym. Returning to the protagonist, she is at the funeral with a writer who is her client to give her support and talk about some of her work. As she is leaving, a girl bumps into her, and she remembers where she knew Mile Mang. When her parents passed away, the man cried desperately at someone's coffin, something he said he never did. Dong Jaeyoung is at the bus stop when a girl sits next to her, the same one she had bumped into and who is Mile Mang's friend. God, she asks which one she should take to get to her destination. Soon after Mile Mang appears, and when the protagonist says that she had already seen him before, the man gets angry, telling them to talk at home. When the two are in the apartment, the man tells her to quit her job and enjoy the last few days of her life. However, Dong Jaeyoung doesn't want to spend his order with money and needs to work to pay the bills. For a moment, she begins to think that he is in love with her with so much concern he has been showing, but Mile Mang denies it. When she asked who had died that day, he was crying, and when she saw him for the first time, she discovered that she was the man's mother. The next day, Mile Mang pretends to be the protagonist's boss at work, and to deal with this, Dong Jaeyoung asks Mr. Cha to go to his place to meet Na Ji Na. However, the man doesn't know who he really is because he only knows her by her pseudonym. In the cafe, when they start the meeting, the two remember the past in which they were involved, and at that moment, Mr. Cha realizes that she is inspired by her old love to create her male characters, who happen to be Mr. Cha's childhood friend. Mile Mang decides to go after her friend Deus when she realizes that it was she who made the protagonist remember where she knew him, and she warns him that her feelings for Dong Jaeyoung will increase more and more. The man decides not to take it easy on the protagonist, and when they meet again, he makes her feel so much pain in her head that she spends her desire asking to stop, but she doesn't do that. Mile Mang, in the end, eases Dong Jaeyoung's pain and says that she will make her cry because of her and want to end the world to take her life. However, when the woman hears this, she decides to end everything at that moment and throw herself off the roof. However, the man she said didn't care held her back. The protagonist says that she knew he would save her again and that her plan is to try to love him so she wouldn't lose anyone. Because he was the person she would love most, she would still survive, and the world wouldn't end. Since the two will follow this line of reasoning, Mile Mang created a room in her house with a bed for them to share at night, in case Dong Jaeyoung sleeps and he watches her. The next day, the protagonist does some research on how to fall in love, but nothing she finds seems to be good enough. So she turns to her writer friend. The two remember the first date they had. Na Ji Na was looking for drinks, and Dong Jaeyoung had some in her backpack, so the protagonist sold them to the girl who climbed the wall. After the drink took effect, Na Ji Na declared herself to her lover in front of everyone. Her friend's advice for Dong Jaeyoung to fall in love is to dream about Mile Mang, so meeting him in her dreams will happen. The writer tells her a little gossip. Mr. Cha is the man she gave her first kiss, but don't confuse it with the man she was in love with. Later, we see Mr. Cha at his house with his childhood friend, the one the writer loved. The man will lend him his car so he can go meet the class with the vehicle. The protagonist tells Mile Mang to enter her dreams at night, so she will try to follow the tips she received from her friend and from what she read on the internet. However, none of the attempts made so far have worked. Dong Jaeyoung decides to try something different and asks his partner to tell him more about himself and show him his world. And as Mile Mang walks through the world, he is showing the protagonist that things start to lose life, so she understands why he avoids falling in love or having any connection. Everything in the end leads to the same place due to his own existence and fault. The next day, Dong Jiang tells Mile Mang that he forgives him for leaving his dreams suddenly and not letting her get closer, which makes the man very angry. Sun Jiang shows up at her sister's house, asking to borrow money, something that is very recurrent in their relationship, and this time she says it's for a course. However, she is worn out from all the courses the boy started and didn't go through with it. The two end up arguing because she was unable to develop some dreams to achieve because she was always working to support her little brother's dreams. The conversation doesn't end well, as Sun Jiang says that she would rather die than live like the protagonist. Mile Mang appears shortly after the fight and says that he could end the ungrateful man's life whenever he wanted, then questions whether Dong Jiang would forgive him for that since he is distributing kindnesses. The man begins to use his words more and more heavily, and in the end, the protagonist says that she doesn't want him alive, so he takes her to a forest and gives her a gun, saying that if it's your wish, just make it come true. Of course, the woman doesn't do anything. Later at home, Dong Jiang cries when she is alone and then gets a call from the hospital her brother is there. Mile Mang goes to the trial of the man he didn't let take his own life in prison, and he is charged with life in prison. However, the man wanted the sentence that would end his life. When the protagonist arrives where her brother is, she hears him saying that she is going to give the money like this, and she must be very scared. The woman immediately gets upset and leaves the hospital. Dong Jiang's doctor decides to stop his brother, who was trying to go after the protagonist, and tells him about his sister's situation. Dong Jiang meets Mile Mang in front of the hospital, and at that moment, that man, who was sent to prison again, is in the ambulance, passing by the two for having hit his head in one of his outbursts. However, the man is awake and is willing to try to take Mile Mang's life. However, when he manages to get out of the vehicle and is heading towards Mile Mang with something to cut him, the protagonist puts her body in front of her beloved to protect him. Mile Mang holds the sharp object with his hand and then makes the man end his own life. After what happened, Mile Mang transferred himself and Dong Jiang to a place close to the hospital, and then the people who saw the event forgot their presence and only remembered the man taking his own life. Upon hearing from the protagonist that she put her life at risk on impulse and doesn't regret it, he gets angry at what Dong Jiang did without having an explicit reason. However, the conversation is interrupted by the arrival of the woman's brother. The boy is devastated by the news that his sister is sick and cannot stop crying. At night, when he is calmer, he says he gives permission for his little brother-in-law, which is what he calls Mile Mang, and the protagonist to live together. Leaving, it dawns on the boy that he has to be more responsible at this moment, and Sun Jiang goes looking for a job. Fate or not, the coffee shop where Na Jina's crush works is hiring, and that's where the boy will start. Mile Mang wants to know why the protagonist defended him, and she says that if he just watches her, she will find out. Then the man appears again at work as a replacement for one of his colleagues. Mile Mang stares all the time, so much so that even Mr. Cha noticed. The next day at work, everyone faces a big problem. One of the editors, who is not the protagonist, accidentally published a chapter early, and they have to hear his boss scream. Dong Jiang takes the blame for the mistake that wasn't his to get it over with. However, she will have to convince the author to write more, and the boy is not a very cooperative figure. In order for the individual to agree to continue his work a little longer, the protagonist takes him to eat at an expensive place and then offers to do whatever he wants, including going to the market while he eats to get something that is not available in the restaurant. The boy treated her badly the entire time, and Mile Mang is a waiter at the place. When he sees the situation and that she left for a while to get more things, he sits down to talk to the writer and asks him to be less rude, which causes the boy to leave the place before Dong Jiang returns. Going home, Mile Mang treats the protagonist and takes her to the beach. She tells the man a secret. Whenever she felt like crying, she would go to this beach and stay there alone with her tears. Dong Jiang didn't want anyone to see her like that. At one point, the protagonist asks if Mile Mang wants to kiss him, and when the man goes towards her, she removes her face. Mr. Cha calls Na Jina and makes her a proposal. If the woman agrees to sign a contract directly with him, the man will make her reach the top 10 on the reading platform. Later, when the protagonist and Mile Mang are watching people together, he asks her to love him so he can save her life, which is what the man wants. However, Dong Jiang doesn't want to wish for that, because if he disappears after the deal is made, she doesn't know if she will be happy without having him in her life. The next day, the protagonist is going out with her coworker and asks her to arrange a blind date for her, so someone else would lose their life because she broke the contract and could still be with Mile Mang. After discovering at work that he would have to go after that arrogant juvenile writer, Dong Jiang asks Na Jina to go out and de-stress, and while they talk, she ends up telling her friend that Mr. Cha said he kissed her out of pity when they were younger. Na Jina calls Mr. Cha and asks to meet. She asks him if the man offered her a contract because he still feels sorry for her, and he says he believes in her potential. In the end, Na Jina signs. The protagonist takes her brother to have a test to see if he doesn't have a tumor too. The woman explains to her doctor that she is afraid it is genetic. In the end, the doctor says that he inspired her to help him with his treatment and gives him some medicines that will help with the pain. The doctor adds that he wants the woman alive, he doesn't want anyone else as his editor, and she deserves to live. Among the patients, some talk about a ghost doctor. However, the man's descriptions don't match, and some even see a woman. Even the doctor, when Mile Mang approaches, thinks he is Dong Jiyoung's younger brother, and upon discovering that he is like a boyfriend, says that he doesn't believe that love has an age and every form is valid. Also, when Sun Jiyoung joins, he asks if Mile Mang dyed her hair. However, the protagonist has always seen him the same way. When she sees the selfie her brother took, she realizes that everyone sees Mile Mang in a different way. However, the man tells her that only she sees him as his true self, and she discovers that she is first in all these aspects. On the way home, Dong Jiyoung finds that young author, but he ignores her, and at night he sends messages asking her not to go after him or send any more messages. The protagonist's co-worker, who she had asked to set her up on a blind date, tells her that it will happen after work. Mile Mang appears at the scene and surprises Dong Jiyoung by pretending to be her colleague's boyfriend and introducing someone else to be her date. The man soon ends the meeting and takes the protagonist to another place. He shows her that she can want to love him, using her powers to almost kiss, but she doesn't want it to happen that way. Meanwhile, Mr. Cha is at Na Jina's house helping with her new book. When the man is leaving, he notices that his umbrella, from the day they kissed, is near the door and says he will get it back, which leaves the woman very ashamed. Later, it's the class date, and Na Jina is the only girl present. As soon as her old flame walks in, she's already a little uncomfortable. Even more so with the questions that his former colleagues ask about whether his wife still likes him or about the breakup. At the end of the date, the man approaches Na Jina and offers her a ride, but she doesn't accept. The next day at work, the protagonist asks Mr. Cha what he would wish for in the last days of his life, and as the conversation unfolds, the man says that if the person who grants the wish is a romance, the best thing would be to ask that person who falls madly in love with you. Dong Jiyoung thinks about it on the way home, and luckily for her, it starts to rain a lot. When she gets off at the stop, she meets Mile Mang, and he tells the two of them to run home because it's fun. Before entering the house, the protagonist wants the man to love her. However, he says he cannot grant her that and then kisses her. In the next scene, we see her friend Deus saying that if something goes out of schedule or fails, it must be deleted or restarted, and then Mile Mang disappears. Dong Jiyoung runs to her apartment to see if Mile Mang or her house will be there, but everything disappears and returns to the way it was before he appeared in her life. The next day at work, the protagonist is distracted thinking about what happened, and when she is told that the office CEO wants to see her, she imagines that it could be another prank by Mile Mang. However, she is surprised when she enters the room and discovers that it is actually the real CEO. The man asks her to organize a dinner at a restaurant to celebrate her return. And when she leaves, she receives another surprise that young writer appears to have had a private meeting with Dong Jiyoung. He tells him that he will continue his work, albeit anonymously, as the people who became his fans in the acting competition he is participating in cannot know. When asked why the boy decides to continue writing, he responds that it is because of a man who always appears in his dreams, saying that if he doesn't finish writing, something will happen to him. The protagonist knows that it is Mile Mang, however she does not understand why he disappeared. We now see Mile Mang. He goes back in time to the day Dong Jiyoung lost his job because the bus had a flat tire. Then his friend God shows him several sequences of bad things that happened in the girl's life and tells him that everything is because of man's fault. The girl did this so that Mile Mang remembers the purpose of her existence and thinks it's a joke that the man believes that Dong Jiyoung will love him. She blames the tumor on her too. When she is going home, the protagonist meets him on the way and Mile Mang gives her a ride. The woman asks him questions, such as where he went and why he disappeared, but it is difficult to explain, as it was not his choice or decision for this to happen. She asks Mile Mang to take her to the entrance of the man's house, so Dong Jiyoung knows where he lives, so when it happens again, she will know where to look for him. The man takes her to the place, but tells her to stop living together and just keep the initial agreement, without involvement. When the protagonist takes a step to get closer to him, she is transferred to her apartment. Sun Jiyoung, at his work, catches his boss admiring a photo of a woman and asks about the man. Tells him everything, including how his best friend helped him when he was younger. He didn't have the courage to break up with the girl, so his friend typed, and they just didn't see each other anymore. Sung Jae-young thought the story of an acquaintance of hers was similar. The boy also broke up with her via text message, and every time she drinks too much, she says she's going to make him pay for it. His boss takes him to the house he is currently living in, which actually belongs to Mr. Cha, and Sung Jae-young recognizes him as soon as he enters the place. However, it turns out that the people at the company don't know that Mr. Cha comes from a family that has a lot of money and that they even own the building, so the man asks the boy to keep this secret. Later, when Lee Hyun-gyu is cleaning the kitchen, his friend says that now that he has found a student, someone who looks up to him, just like Lee Hyun-gyu did for him, he can now move and live somewhere else. But the man says he will forever keep his best friend company. While Lee Hyun-gyu talks about Na Ji-na to his friend, Mr. Cha receives a message from her asking him to come to his apartment, but the man says he can't at the moment. We see how their first kiss happened. The girl was waiting in the rain for Lee Hyun-gyu in front of her building after he no longer responded to her messages, and Mr. Cha, who at the time was not given that name, saw her crying, saying that he had never even kissed his friend. Then, out of pity, or suddenly another mixed feeling, he kissed her. A writer who is a client of the protagonist's company holds a meeting with her and tells her that she will stop with the novel she was writing, as she was diagnosed with ovarian cancer, so she will prioritize her health. The woman preferred to tell it herself rather than leave it to a writer who will attend the CEO's return meeting that night, who will probably bring the matter to the table. And this actually happens later. This not-so-kind writer talks about how the woman's ex-husband left her because he was tired of taking care of her, and if he were the man, he would have done it a long time ago. Even more uncomfortable, the man says that Dong Jae-young should be kinder to people so as not to end up alone and sick like the writer. This was the last straw for the protagonist, who decides to leave his place and tells everyone who only has 3 months to live, and then leaves. Dong Jae-young tries his best to bring Mile Mang to her, but nothing works, and he ends up sleeping on the living room floor. The man appears when she is still asleep and recharges the bracelet, then puts a pillow under her head and leaves. When the protagonist wakes up and realizes that he was there, she gets very angry and decides to break the bracelet. We see Na Ji-na in the next scene helpless. She has just found out about Dong Jae-young's illness and goes to the company office, where Mr. Cha calms her down and they talk about it. Due to the woman's nervous state, the man gives her a ride so that she doesn't drive. The protagonist ended up in the hospital and we see Mile Mang talking to her friend God. She says that the best thing is for him not to go see her, which is the right thing to do, and upon hearing these words the man decides to go after Dong Jae-young. After she wakes up, the protagonist starts walking around the hospital, and when she sees Mile Mang, she says things to hurt him. However, he is only concerned about how she is and hugs her. Then he scolds her for taking off the bracelet, and in the end, she says that she will tell Dong Jae-young everything. Mile Mang explains that all the bad things that marked the protagonist's life are to blame, and to his surprise, Dong Jae-young alleviates it by saying that certain things needed to happen and that whoever is saying these things to him should say that for Dong Jae-young, it's okay to be like this. Suddenly, the protagonist disappears, and Mile Mang looks for her everywhere but doesn't find her. When he bumps into Sung Jae-young and says he is his only child, the man starts to believe that the woman's existence has been erased. Dong Jae-young appears in a garden where God is. The girl says that she had planted a possibility in the flower pot that created a sprout with the protagonist suffering, and now, Mile Mang cares about someone more than himself. The woman tells Dong Jae-young not to suffer anymore because of Mile Mang, and the protagonist says not to blame him, as she has never felt unhappy because of the man. After that, God releases Dong Jae-young to return to his world, and the protagonist ends up at Mile Mang's door. She tells the man the entire conversation she had with the deity, and he says he was scared because no one remembered her. At the hospital, Sung Jae-young doesn't want to let his sister go home, but Mile Mang convinces him that he's a doctor and it's okay for her to go. Na Ji-na also appears in the hospital room and goes in the car to the protagonist's house. The two of them, her friend and brother, are very worried and don't want to let go of the woman. However, she asks them to leave so she can rest with her. Mile Mang. When everyone is going home, Na Ji-na tells Sung Jae-young that he has matured and that, in order to no longer go through things alone, she will share the burden with him, like another older sister. Returning to Dong Jae-yoon, Mile Mang puts the bracelet back on his wrist and the two decide to continue living together. Later, the man talks to his friend God, and in the end, she says that the woman is already loving him, and even a love with no future remains love. The next day, the protagonist receives a call from that writer, who is also sick, and the two meet to talk. The woman says that after she found out that she was defended by Dong Jae-young and that she had resigned, she also did the same and took her romances out of the company. Mile Mang is waiting for the protagonist after the meeting and gives her a surprise. When she says that she would have liked to enjoy the flowering trees more in spring if she knew it would be her last time, the man goes back in time so they can observe the flowers. The woman says that this brings back good memories when she was little. She remembers riding on a Ferris wheel with her brother and that it was a great family outing with her parents. Then Dong Jaeun goes to Na Jina's house and asks her friend to treat her normally, like she always was, and forget that she is sick, and the two decide to have a sleepover. As soon as the girls wake up, Mr. Cha appears at Na Jina's apartment, and the protagonist finds out about the contract that her friend signed directly with the man. Soon, she leaves to leave the two alone. Mr. Cha looks like he's going to open up and tell Na Jina something to consider when suddenly her doorbell rings and it's Lee Hyun-gyu at her door. Mile Mang meets the protagonist on the street and gives her another surprise. The man returns on the day she said she had a great memory with her parents and leaves the girl emotional. When they talk again about the desire that Dong Jaeung still has to choose, she says that she already asked the man to fall in love with her, but he didn't grant her that, and Mile Mang tells her that she doesn't need to worry about that. The man adds that she might like him and that only the protagonist matters to him now. And their conversation is interrupted when the aunt who raised Dong Jaeung and her brother appears. As soon as the protagonist realizes that his aunt is in front of him, he runs away to escape the lesson that the woman is ready to deal with about having hidden her illness until the moment her brother bypasses her. Meanwhile, Na Jina closes the door before Lee Hyun-gyu can say anything other than apologize for showing up unannounced and tells the man to wait for her downstairs. Mr. Cha is so surprised when she stops visiting, and the two agree that the man will wait for her to leave and then go to his house. Lee Hyun-gyu opens his heart to Na Jina and says he's missed her all this time, but the woman says that 9 years later, it's too late to say that. However, despite all the hurt he was worried about, she is still sitting there talking to Lee Hyun-gyu and paying attention to what the man has to say. Na Jina says that liking him is like stepping on damp ground, but she knows that everything was dry for him and that she wouldn't want to go back to that time, so she leaves. Returning to the protagonist, her aunt's name is Suja. When she is calmer, she introduces herself to Mile Mang and says she knows that he is her niece's boyfriend. The woman asks where he is living because it is so late and he is still on the street. It turns out that Dong Jaeung doesn't want to reveal that the two are living together. Before that, he puts him outside and hands over his cell phone so he can call the man later. When Suja and the protagonist are alone, her aunt says she's not angry and knows how she feels, then gives her a bunch of new clothes they stole for her little girl in Canada. When Lee Hyun-gyu arrives home, he makes a discovery. A notification arrives on Mr. Cha's cell phone while he is in the shower, and the man takes a look. At that moment, he comes across a message from Na Jina asking if Mr. Cha arrived home safely. Lee Hyun-gyu still hasn't asked anything about his friend. Later, Dong Jaeung calls Mile Mang, and when he comments that his aunt looks like his mother, the woman says it's because they are identical, which comforts his heart a little when he misses his mother. The protagonist makes a request to Mile Mang, and the next day the man pretends to be the girl's doctor, taking advantage of being able to change shape, so that Suja's heart becomes calmer and she can ask her questions about the disease. Dong Jaeung bought Mile Mang a cell phone so he could communicate better. Later, the man takes her to do something different in a small town. He gives her a camera, and a little boy is with his grandmother, waiting for his teacher to arrive to give him his diploma. However, the man had passed away earlier. Mile Mang decided to appear with the teacher's appearance, and Dong Jaeung will be a photograph to record this important moment in the boy's life. Later, the man tells the protagonist that you have already arrived in the garden, where she was with her friend God. Dong Jaeung comments that he has seen her in hospital clothes, and Mile Mang explains that the woman is always sick. She was a teenager with the sins of humans. She passed away and was then reborn. Meanwhile, Suja visits her sister's grave with her husband Kevin. The woman says she knows her sister misses her daughter but begs her to leave a girl in this world just a little longer. The protagonist decides to do something that I had never done before, buying several things and spending without thinking. She buys a gift for each person she loves, and Mile Mang is the one who accompanies her. Dong Jaeung makes a gift for herself. She takes photos with her lover and then puts them on his cell phone cover. The next day, Mile Mang goes to the hospital to visit her friend Deus. He apologizes for not listening to what she has to say and confesses that, although he never said it, he always felt sorry for the cycle that the woman has been going through over and over again. Times of getting sick and then dying. The man says all this without seeing her, because according to her, she said she was changing. However, the truth is that she is in very bad shape. Meanwhile, Mr. Cha goes to the cafe where Lee Hyun-gyu works and says he wants to talk to him. However, his father appears, and coincidentally, the CEO of his company is also there, so the man doesn't find out who he really is. Mr. Cha, Lee Hyun-gyu, helps his friend. The two end up meeting later in the elevator, and Lee Hyun-gyu asks his friend if he knows who Na Ji-na is. As soon as the man confirms that he does, instead of going home, he goes after the woman. Na Ji-na is in the laundry room of her building and is surprised when Lee Hyun-gyu says that even though she is dating someone, he wants to be the chosen one and become her boyfriend because he still has feelings, and as they already had a relationship, the man wants you to take that into consideration. Meanwhile, the protagonist asks Mile Mang if she can ask to live a little longer, but the man cannot grant her that. In order for her to survive, she will have to do what she had previously decided. However, Mile Mang will disappear. The man realizes in the middle of this conversation that Dong Jae-young doesn't have much time left to live and decides to make his feelings clear to the woman. He says that he loves her and that he is in love with her. After this statement, the protagonist suggests that the two start officially dating. The next day, Na Ji-na is called to the company to have a meeting with another writer. The man called her because he believed she plagiarized part of his work. However, at the scene, the woman discovered that it was just a sentence about students eating food, something normal, and that it was not copied from the man. The writer starts hitting on Na Ji-na, and when Mr. Cha arrives at the company and finds out about the meeting, he runs to try to prevent something worse from happening, but when he enters the room, the woman is throwing her notebook on the floor and a beast is with the man. Mr. Cha ends up defending the writer. At night, the protagonist ends up having dinner with her family and Mile Mang. However, something that breaks her heart happens when her aunt goes inside the house to get more drinks. The woman finds the photo that Dong Jae-young had taken a few days ago and starts to cry. The protagonist realizes that she is taking a long time and goes in to see if she doesn't need help. She knows that this disease doesn't just make those who have it suffer but also everyone around her, so she comes across her aunt in tears. Then Dong Jae-young returns to the table and tells everyone that Suja will be back, and then his aunt appears as if nothing had happened. Later, the protagonist thanks Mile Mang for keeping them company even though she doesn't drink or eat, and the man asks her to tell him what she's feeling right now because, when she made the deal with Dong Jae-young, she couldn't do it anymore. Listen to your thoughts or know what you feel. However, the woman is not good at letting her feelings out and says goodbye. Meanwhile, Mr. Cha apologizes to his friend for going overboard with Na Ji-na. The protagonist goes to visit Mile Mang's friend Deus in the hospital the next day and brings her a gift that will help her wet her little bud. Dong Jae-young says that she was always angry with the superior being, but now that he knows the weight she carries on her small shoulders because of the world, it seems that her reasons have become small compared to that. The woman sympathizes with the protagonist's words and says that only she could help herself, that she should love Mile Mang and live life however it unfolds, because anyway, man was created for humanity. As she is leaving, Dong Jae-young is called by her doctor to talk, and he invites her to his wedding, which will take place in 3 months. Then the protagonist meets with that young writer to get his autograph for the writer. Dalgona, the woman, has become a fan of the young man and is also sick. This will cheer her up. Dong Jae-young asks the young writer's opinion in a story. If the protagonist chooses to stay with the one she loves, the world will end. However, if she tries to protect the world, the person she loves will lose their life. Taking this into consideration, would he finish the story? The young man believes that the protagonist should isolate herself from everyone. That way, she would save the world, and that's what the protagonists do. Occasionally, things don't end happily ever after. Dalgona is happy with the autograph, and Mile Mang is waiting for Dong Jae-young after the meeting. The man, as soon as he sees her, asks her to marry him, adding that, as he doesn't know how long he has left to live, he wants to make the most of it with his loved one. However, the protagonist explains that there are several stages before marriage and takes him to see the tomb where her parents are. Mile Mang introduces himself to them and says he wants to marry their daughter. However, she rejected him, and Dong Jae-young starts joking as if her parents hadn't allowed her to get married. The man then says he doesn't understand the reason. She always avoids what she really wants to say. Afterwards, the two celebrate Mile Mang's birthdays that have passed and were never celebrated. At the end, the man blows out the candles and makes a wish that the protagonist be happy with the people she loves, alive, and in the little time that is left, that she remember him. Meanwhile, Mr. Cha goes to see Na Ji-na, and in the middle of the conversation, he reveals to her that he knows Lee Hyun-gyu and that he kissed her that day many years ago to prevent the girl from seeing him, as he would know that she wouldn't be happy with him. The man says that Lee Hyun-gyu has been his friend for a long time and that they even lived together, but because he chose this and knows what his friend is like, he wouldn't change anything he did. Returning to Dong Jiang, she made a list of things she needed to do: buy gifts for her loved ones, talk to the writers, celebrate Mile Mang's birthday. Everything was there, but in the end, there was just one more item left, and that was to leave. And leave everyone. He was trying to forget them so he could save the world and everyone he loves, including Mile Mang. The man catches her sneaking out with her luggage and tries to stop her. However, the protagonist is determined to do what she will do and leaves her bracelet with him. Dong Jiang goes to the house near the beach where she used to cry when she was sad, and because she was very alone, she remembers moments with the people she loves. However, she tries to stay strong to try to forget them and save them. Mile Mang finds the protagonist and asks her to be honest and say what's in her heart to him. Dong Jiang feels safe and breaks down, saying that she really wants to live, but with everyone she loves together. These words move the man, who hugs her and tries to comfort her. He confesses that he also wants to live so he can be with her and then pass away together. The next day, the company's CEO calls Mr. Cha for a talk. He wants Na Jina to apologize to that arrogant writer and pay for the notebook. Mr. Cha, like any employee, is tired of the way he is treated and says to the man that he is deducting the value of his termination as he is resigning. Meanwhile, Dong Jiang and Mile Mang spent the day talking and eating delicious food. She really needed to vent. Mr. Cha goes to relax with a bat and hits some balls. Lee Hyun-gyu accompanies him and makes a bet with the man: whoever wins can ask the other for whatever they want. In the end, it is Mr. Cha who wins and says that he will tell him what he wants later, when he finds something. The next day, Na Jina appears at Lee Hyun-gyu's cafe and makes him a proposal. The two will have 3 meetings to find out whether what they feel for each other is regret or love, and then they will be able to decide whether they will stay together. The man accepts, even with the condition that they do not exchange messages or calls, or that he shows up at her house suddenly. When leaving the cafe, Na Jina ends up meeting Mr. Cha, and when telling him what he just did, he talks about ending the contract between the two. However, the woman says that if he does that, she will tell her husband friend that Mr. Cha kissed her years ago so that the two would not see each other. The man thinks she wouldn't have the courage to do so, but if she wants to, he frees the woman to tell her. Then he gives her the umbrella he was using so that Na Jina doesn't get sick, and she leaves. The day was beautiful and cozy for Dong Jiang and Mile Mang. As he knew that the woman's family and friends were worried about her disappearance, he prepared a surprise for the protagonist, and when they arrive at the beach house, everyone is waiting. At night, when it's just Mile Mang and Suja preparing the food, she thanks him for calling and letting her know where they were, then comments that even though she and her sister are identical twins, Suja believes she got all the bad parts. Personality, bad mood, etc. And she adds that when her sister passed away, she started dedicating her life to the 2 children who remained as gifts, and since she was little, Dong Jiang would hide when she was sad or something. She was never one to talk about her feelings. Meanwhile, Na Jina and Sun Jiang talk about her love life. The boy guesses that if she gets as heated with another guy as she does with the one she's been in love with since she was a teenager, it could be that she likes them both, referring to Mr. Cha and Lee Hyun-gyu. However, as Na Jina doesn't speak names, the boy doesn't know who the two are. The next day, the protagonist and Na Jina go out for a walk and talk, and the writer tells everything that happened to that arrogant writer and what he did with Mr. Cha's notebook. Dong Jiang asks his friend if she likes Mr. Cha, and she denies it, saying that in fact she is trying to make things right with Lee Hyun-gyu so that the two of them can get back together. Mile Mang watches them from afar and feels the sensation that tells him that his friend God is getting worse and worse. He later tells the protagonist that he is going to the hospital to visit her. At the scene, the woman consoles him, saying that he will be born again, and Mile Mang asks her to tell him the answer to what to do about Dong Jiang. However, she only says that deities live and disappear for humans, that is their function. The protagonist appears at the hospital to support her loved one, and then they leave talking. He explains to her that this is what always happens to women. On the way, Mile Mang ends up realizing that a little boy would be run over by a motorcycle, so he runs to the hospital to take him. Dong Jiang is surprised that he stopped the event, and the man explains that it's because she saw it. After he started to love her, he started to find humans adorable. The protagonist's cell phone rings with an unknown number calling her, and when she answers, she discovers it is from the company's CEO. He asks her to go to the office, and if Dong Jiang doesn't go, he will sue Na Jina. However, nothing happens at the place that she imagined. The man kneels at her feet and asks the woman to help him. The CEO wants the protagonist to convince Mr. Cha to return to work at the company. She adds that the man is the son of the building owner and lives in the penthouse. The protagonist goes to Mr. Cha's house and is amazed when she sees the place. She is even more amazed when she discovers that the car parked every day belongs to the man. Mr. Cha says that he resigned because he couldn't stand working with that CEO anymore and that he is now thinking about opening a company and even inviting Dong Jiang to work in a good position after she improves. Meanwhile, Na Jina decided to stop with novels that look the same, where the protagonists are inspired by Lee Hyun-gyu, and create a new one, now inspired by Mr. Cha. Suja goes to the hospital with her husband Kevin and asks to speak to the doctor who talked to her a few days ago about Dong Jiang's condition, as it was Mile Mang. He is not in the hospital's database, and the nurse informs her that she is the protagonist's aunt. The woman doesn't understand how this could be happening and sits down. Some patients heard about it and commented to her that there are ghost doctors in the place. They think that Suja could have been another case that saw them. The woman suddenly starts feeling sick and ends up needing help. The protagonist is talking to Mile Mang in the meantime, and he says that if he went back in time, he would like to do things exactly the same way, find her and love her. The conversation is interrupted when Dong Jiang receives a call about his aunt and rushes to the hospital. At the scene, Suja comments that they couldn't find the doctor, and she doesn't want to hear any more excuses about her hospitalization. Kevin will find a better hospital, and the two will take Dong Jiang there. The girl tries to explain to her aunt that either way she will lose her life, hospitalized, with surgery, or just continuing without any treatment. Hearing these words cause more stress and pain in Suja. Kevin takes the protagonist a little away and explains that at the moment she needs Dong Jiang and her aunt to avoid topics that could cause her stress. The woman will need to recover. Mile Mang is waiting for the protagonist at the reception, and when she is leaving the room where her aunt is, she ends up meeting her friend God. The woman says she can help Dong Jiang. She can erase Mile Mang from her life and do the same with it. One will not remember the other, so the agreement will be erased too. The protagonist will then be able to undergo treatment like the other patients and face the end of her life slowly. In any case, her destiny, whatever her choice, will be to lose her life. Dong Jiang ends up accepting the proposal. In the next scene, we see the protagonist talking to her doctor. She will be hospitalized to begin treatment, and when he asks why she didn't show up sooner, Dong Jiang can't remember her reason. The doctor explains that this is one of the symptoms of her illness. After the appointment, when he is walking down the hospital corridor, he ends up bumping into Mile Mang, and the protagonist thinks about how handsome he is. Like the first time they met, the man reads her thoughts and says that despite his beauty, he is busy. Then Dong Jiang goes to Dalgona's room and gives her apples. The woman comments that before, the protagonist was so radiant and asks what changed. As Dong Jiang doesn't remember, he doesn't know what to say and says that because of her illness, she is afraid of losing all her happy memories. So Dalgona promises to visit the protagonist when she is hospitalized and create other happy memories with her. At home, Dong Jiang receives messages from her ex-boyfriend, who had deceived her about being married. He asks if the woman became like this because she was suffering for him and comments that she got divorced because of her, but that he forgives her. The protagonist doesn't understand what's going through this darling's head and blocks him. Her brother asks if she wasn't seeing someone else, as he has a feeling that was happening. The next day, Dong Jiang is admitted. Na Jina is the one who will keep her company, and when the two are having a drink at the hospital reception, they hear other patients commenting on the ghost doctors. The protagonist comments that one day she saw a super handsome doctor, and the other patients think he could join the group of ghost doctors, as there are none who are handsome. Then Dong Jiang takes Na Jina to his vehicle and says goodbye to his friend. When the protagonist is shaking, her bracelet ends up falling apart and falling under a car, so she bends down to pick it up. Meanwhile, Mile Mang chases a man who took his own son's life in the parking lot. He breaks the criminal's bones, but when he realizes that Dong Jiang is watching him, he ends up letting the man escape. In the next scene, we see Lee Hyun-gyu bored at home, and when he goes into the living room, he notices that Mr. Cha left what he was reading open on the app, and the man picks it up to take a look. The writer's stories are very similar to what happens between him and Na Jina. Lee Hyun-gyu realizes that the writer's pseudonym is similar to her name. Meanwhile, Mr. Cha meets with Na Jina and says he knows that he is the new protagonist and needs to know if the woman likes him. When she questions the reason, the man replies that it is to know if he should try to steal Na Jina. You're friends. Returning to the protagonist, Mile Mang is surprised when he discovers that Dong Jiang remembers him from earlier, and the woman starts asking why only she could see him. She starts to think that it could be because they both have unfinished business and that he is a ghost. The next day, that young writer goes to visit the protagonist, and in the middle of the conversation, he asks her how the story she had told him about the protagonist not knowing whether to save the world or who she loves ended. As expected, Dong Jae-young doesn't remember what he's talking about, and the boy says he thought of a sequel that the protagonist would live in a loop, go back in time, and avoid the moment in which she makes the decision, but even though she does do everything to avoid it, things would repeat themselves until the moment of decision was reached again. After they say goodbye, when she is returning to her room, the protagonist comes across her friend Deis. Although she doesn't remember meeting her, the woman comments that the roof is a beautiful place for the new hospitalized patient to visit. The next day, Mile Mang comments to his friend that he thought it was strange for a human to recognize him. This had never happened to him before. He notices that she is taking care of an almost lifeless little sprout and doesn't understand the reason for wasting time on this. The woman explains that that little sprout is Mile Mang. Meanwhile, Na Jina invites Lee Hyun-gyu to one of the dates. When she goes to drop him off at home, the man asks her if her pseudonym is Lee Hyun, and when she confirms, he says that he read her stories and recognized them. Only the new one that he knows is not about both of them. However, he regrets having commented on it and soon says goodbye and enters his house. Returning to the protagonist, she ends up meeting Mile Mang on the roof, and when he starts to be unpleasant, Dong Jae-young decides to go to her room. However, in the elevator she starts to feel severe pain and the man ends up helping her. Afterwards, he proposes to the protagonist the contract to end the world with her help. However, because she doesn't really believe his words, Mile Mang takes her to the beach, then makes the proposal again, when she asks his reason for faith. That Dong Jae-young can end the world, the man doesn't know how to answer. However, the protagonist does not accept the agreement and comments that she was tempted, as she loves this beach and feels that she was truly happy with someone recently in that place, she just can't remember with whom. Mile Mang asks about the bracelet on his wrist and Dong Jae-young can't explain why he doesn't remember, but he knows that if he goes without it, he'll start to have anxiety. Suddenly, when the man touches his face, the protagonist returns to the elevator with tears on her face and he goes to her house in the same state. Then he realizes that something is wrong and goes to his friend God to find out. The woman confesses that she did something with Dong Jae-young, gave her a second chance, and with this information, Mile Mang goes to the protagonist to find out what she can find out about their relationship. God's little sprout comes back to life and she comments that certain things are inevitable. Meanwhile, her friend asks him if he kissed Na Jina. Cha Juik confesses that he did and explains his reasons, as he had told Na Jina too. The conversation is not easy for the two. Lee Hyun-gyu says that his friend didn't need to be so sincere in confessing his mistakes, and Cha Juik explains that he told the truth because he really liked his friend. And Lee Hyun-gyu ends up sleeping in the cafeteria that night because he can't stand being in the same place as Cha Juik after finding out everything. Returning to our couple with a short memory, Mile Mang asks the protagonist if she met a short woman in the hospital, so Dong Jae-young talks about what he remembers, opening the bottle for her and getting the tip from the roof. However, Mile Mang wants to know more and ends up feeling stressed because the protagonist doesn't have any answers either. Dong Jae-young comments that after he returned to the elevator with tears on his face, there was only one thought, and that was to call the human, a nickname that the protagonist gave to Mile Mang. However, she didn't know who this human was, but when she picked up his cell phone, the contact was there, but no one answered. The man, who doesn't have much patience, ends their conversation and leaves. Upon arriving home, Mile Mang notices that there is a cell phone in her living room, and when she picks it up, she has missed calls from Dong Jae-young. Upon unlocking the device, he comes across a photo of the two of them happy. The next day, the protagonist's former co-workers come to visit her, including Cha Juik, and after a while, Na Jina appears in the room. However, when she realizes that the man is there, she turns around. Cha Juik saw her and immediately went after the woman. The two meet, and she says that she is going out with Lee Hyun-gyu, adding that she can drink and do something stupid. The man then explains to Na Jina that if her feelings were superficial enough to change with some stupid thing she did, he wouldn't have told her about them, and he adds that he has liked her since the beginning, since their first kiss. Cha Juik comments that Lee Hyun-gyu already knows everything. Then, when the woman is returning to the protagonist's room, Dong Jae-young attacks her and demands to know everything. Her friend gives her a little help by saying how Cha Juik is rich, funny, and knows how to say the right things. Later, Na Jina goes to Lee Hyun-gyu's cafe for the two of them to go out for dinner. There, she discovers that Sun Jae-young works there, and the boy starts to piece together the writer's novels, then asks she believes that her boss is her first or second love, and upon discovering that he is her first, she thinks again about her theory that Na Jina should have the second because she is the present and Lee Hyun-gyu is the past. At dinner, the woman said that it must have been easy for him when he missed her, and that's why he came back, because for her, it wasn't quite like that. Na Jina would sit for a long time at the station near his house, hoping to see him, sometimes in a cafe nearby too, or just walking down the street. However, the woman doesn't want him to feel guilty or anything like that, but let him know that she loved him alone for a long time and was the 18-year-old Lee Hyun-gyu. Today a lot of time has passed and the man is a complete stranger to her. Na Jina confesses that kissing Cha Juik matters to her, and so the two end their relationship. When she is going home, she ends up meeting her lover and ends up giving him a kiss. Then Cha Juik helps her enter the residence and get ready for bed. The next day, Dong Jaeyoung receives news from her doctor that she will lose her hair because of chemotherapy, so he tells her to shave it, as this way the process is less painful than seeing it gradually fall out. Her aunt then, to make her more comfortable, says that she is going out for a bit to buy hats for her niece, and as soon as she leaves the room, she bursts into tears. Dong Jaeyoung takes advantage and goes to the beauty salon. She asks them to leave her hair full and wavy. Once ready, the woman confesses to having been a little scared when she saw the protagonist in hospital clothes coming in, as many patients go there to shave their heads, and when Dong Jaeyoung explained what he wanted, she felt relieved. Then the protagonist, after taking some photos of the result, reveals that she will shave and apologizes for the work she put in. She explains that she just wanted to get ready one last time. However, when they start cutting Dong Jaeyoung's hair, her nose starts to bleed, and when she gets up, Mile Mang catches her before she passes out. The protagonist has a dream. While she is unconscious, she sees the man crying desperately at his funeral. When she wakes up, Dong Jaeyoung apologizes to Mile Mang, who is holding her hand. However, he gets up and leaves. On the way to his friend God's room, the man starts to remember some things, and when he arrives in the room, the woman and her belongings are missing. So to try to find out what the protagonist means to him, Mile Mang invades her dream and takes her to her house. There, he tries to analyze the woman, but he can't be sure. So he decides to take her outside, to the world where there are no living things, and Mile Mang has the feeling that he has already taken her there. The two start quoting phrases from the author of the book the man is reading, and after one that Dong Jaeyoung said, he kisses her and starts to remember everything. The woman also remembers the request she made to God so that one would no longer remember the other and thus wake up. When she picked up her notebook, everything she had written in those months came back, and Mile Mang's garden began to come to life. The protagonist goes to her house and doesn't know what to do. Suddenly, a man appears behind her. They both don't believe that one forgot about the other, but despite everything, Mile Mang understands the reasons that made her ask for this. The man says they must accept their fate, and he is willing to disappear for Dong Jaeyoung. When she returns to the hospital, her aunt is worried and waiting for her, and Mile Mang explains that she was with him. Suja questions why he was missing for so long, and the man explains that he was organizing their wedding. At the coffee shop, Cha Juik tells Lee Hyun-gyu to go home, and Sun Jaeyoung realizes at that moment who Na Jina's number 2 love was. Dong Jaeyoung is dragged by her friend to talk about her decision to get married, and Mile is dragged by her brother-in-law. Sun Jaeyoung gives the man money he had saved in savings to help with the wedding. The girls' conversation isn't very lively. The protagonist cries in her friend's lap, saying that no matter how much she tries to avoid the decision, it's no use, and she doesn't know what to do. Meanwhile, Lee Hyun-gyu tells his friend that he thinks it's time to move on and grow up. The next day, the protagonist talks to her doctor, and they postpone the treatment to start after the wedding. Na Jina and Lee Hyun-gyu meet again, and he tries to explain himself to her and show that he is respectful of her decision. When the man returns home, he finds his friend waiting for him in front, and he cannot contain her tears. Cha Juik consoles him, and his friend tells him that he better not hesitate with the woman, otherwise, he will steal her for himself again. Dong Jaeyoung meets his friend God and asks for her help again. However, the woman can't do anything more about it and says that the protagonist just has to accept her fate. It was the happy ending that Mile Mang wanted, but she will understand this at the right time. Over the next few days, the couple does everything together and enjoys everything they can. The protagonist sends those gifts that she had bought to everyone she loved, and they all feel loved. Her brothers had an extra one as she returned the money he had given for the wedding along with his gifts. Dong Jaeyoung in the last few days is afraid of even going to sleep and Mile Mang disappearing, so she asks him not to leave her side. However, the man goes to meet his friend God, and they talk about his choice, which is to protect the protagonist, the world, and everyone she loves, except him. When she returns home, Mile Mang finds Dong Jaeyoung crying because she thought he was gone and says that she can't make the choice, so the protagonist wishes not to love, but he can't give her that because he chose to save her. Later, Dong Jaeyoung makes another request for her to be taken to the world that met her end, but not to stay in place, just to live her last day with her beloved. And he takes her there instead. The protagonist says that she is going to pray, despite the fact that she does not have a god in this world because there are no more humans. She does it anyway, and Mile Mang accompanies her. Dong Jiang discovers that a god is born as soon as he is desired, and she confesses to the man that her request was that he not love despite knowing that it will not be fulfilled. She couldn't hurt to try. And then the protagonist apologizes for loving him so much, and Mile Mang thanks her for that. The day comes to an end, and the two hold hands. Dong Jiang says that she loves him and wants him to be with her until her last moment. Mile Mang says that she will take the protagonist's pain and sadness with him so that she can be happy. And then her loved one disappears. Dong Jiang begins to cry in anguish as the rain falls on him. A few months pass, and Dong Jiang receives news from his doctor that with each appointment, a miracle seems to happen as his tumor shrinks, something he had never seen before, especially without treatment. Cha Juik calls the protagonist, asking her to come to her house, and as the woman was in the car with her friend, Najina ended up letting it slip that the two were no longer speaking. And this time she decided to act differently with her loves. The woman will no longer run after them but wait for them to come to her. At Cha Juik's house, he offers Dong Jiang the position of manager at his company, which currently only has 2 employees. The protagonist takes the opportunity and comments on his relationship with Najina. The two act as if they have all the time in the world to be together, but anything can happen, and she adds that what the man lacks is courage. Cha Juik liked the advice he received and thanked her. At night, Dong Jiang has dinner with her aunt and brother. She has news for her children and reveals that she will move to Korea again, together with her husband Kevin. And the protagonist says that she will go back to work. Even though this idea is not supported by the two at first, the woman explains that she can no longer stand without having anything to do. Later, when Suja and Sun Jiang are cleaning the dishes, they quietly comment about Mile Mang and are worried that Dong Jiang hasn't given many details about why he came back to the United States or whether they broke up in the end. Neither of them has the courage to ask. Na Jina receives an unexpected visitor at her home. Cha Juik appears at her door and talks about what she talked about with Dong Jiang. The man doesn't know if what she said is right, but he decided not to waste any more time. The man talks to Na Jina and says he will come back when she wants to sign a new contract with him or when she is ready to kiss him. The next day, the protagonist wakes up, and when she comes out of her room, she comes across Mile Mang in half of the man's house in her apartment, just like it used to be. She runs to hug him and ends up getting emotional, confessing to having missed him a lot. However, the sound of his alarm clock starts to ring, and when he opens his eyes, Dong Jiang realizes that it was nothing more than a dream. Later, the protagonist meets up with her old co-workers and discovers that each one has a new position, including that one of her colleagues is the new writer who is gaining views on the reading platform. And as the news doesn't stop there, she is also dating the only man left on the team. Dong Jiang is shocked by the findings, and when he tells Cha Juik, he has the same reaction. On the way to the office, the protagonist buys herself a rose, just like the ones Mile Mang had given her, and decides that she will think of it as if she had received it from him, because the ones she had received have already withered. Now, in relation to the office, as it is at the beginning, there isn't much yet, and Dong Jiang expected something bigger and better, but he settles in the end. Afterwards, the protagonist goes to Na Jina's house and convinces her to sign the contract. In the middle of their conversation, her friend says that Dong Jiang should start writing too, since she has experience as an editor. And Sun Jiang is at work talking to his boss. The boy says that now that his sister is much better, he no longer knows which wish to ask for or which path to follow. So Lee Hyungyu gives a little push and offers Sun Jiang the position of manager at the second store. Of course, the boy accepts, and because he is very grateful for the opportunities he has been receiving, he decides to reveal that he knows Na Jina and that she is like a sister to him. The two have a deeper conversation, and Sun Jiang says that he hopes he only lost his first love and that everything is fine between the man and Cha Juik. Lee Hyungyu thought about what he heard from his employee and decided to call Cha Juik to do something. The man tells his friend that he wants to restart their friendship. One night at her house, the protagonist decided to follow Na Jina's advice and start writing about the love between her and Mile Mang. The next day, Dong Jiang got another writer for Cha Juik's company, and it was that young man. He comments about having started reading a new novel about misfortune and that it seems very good, but he wishes the ending wasn't sad. Later, the protagonist has dinner with her loved ones in a place to celebrate the good day she had, and everyone, her aunt, brother, and friend, is interested in knowing what happened to Mile Mang and that they miss him. Afterwards, Dong Jiang goes to Mile Mang's house and sits on the sofa with the photo of the two of them in his hands to alleviate some of his longing, then writes him a message telling him how everyone misses him. Suddenly, his cell phone rings, and it is also on the sofa. The protagonist takes it to look, and there is a message that has never been sent, asking if the woman is happy. Dong Jiang lies down on his bed then, and when she turns around, she sees him next to her. However, when he goes to touch him, the man disappears, and she bursts into tears. When she is returning home, at the bus stop, the protagonist meets the girl god and is happy to know that she is okay, so she doesn't let her get rained on. Dong Jiang gives his umbrella to the girl and says he will go running. We now see the girl in the garden with Mile Mang. The man asks about his beloved, and God tells about his trajectory. When the butterfly in his garden reached the end of its life, which is Mile Mang, it would become a flower, like the remaining in the place, which symbolizes humans. Then the girl says that his true destiny was to live happily as a human and releases him to return to his beloved. The protagonist is on the bus heading home, and when the vehicle stops, someone catches her. Looking at the person, Dong Jiang can't believe who is right in front of him. Has his beloved really come back? Or is it just his mind playing tricks on her again? When they get out of the vehicle, Mile Mang tells them that he has become a human and that now he can get sick, he has to eat, sleep, etc. At home, the man explains that, thanks to the protagonist, he evolved so much that he pleased the girl god, and that's why she allowed him to be born. Before going to sleep, Dong Jiang asks him never to disappear again, and when he opens his eyes the next day, he doesn't see him in bed. At that moment, his heart feels like it's going to stop, but when he gets to the kitchen, there's his beloved. The protagonist takes Mile Mang to her brother to see if he will recognize him, and the girl says God took care of everything. Now everyone sees the man as Dong Jiang saw him. Sun Jiang hugs Mile Mang and points out how much he missed him. The god girl now lives a life as if she were a human too. She is studying and happy with the way things have turned out. Afterwards, the protagonist goes to meet the young writer, and when she leaves the two alone, Mile Mang tells her that they are going to get married and that she knows that the boy likes Dong Jiang. In order for her to get another contract signed, she convinces the young writer to talk to a fan who is Dalgona. With this meeting, the woman signs with Cha Juik's company. Meanwhile, Na Jina ends up bumping into Lee Hyungyo, and he asks her if she's going to go to the class meeting, but the woman has already moved on and says that this time she won't attend. At family dinner, Sun Jiang says that he became the manager of a coffee shop, and Mile Mang says that he is here to stay for good. The man will earn a living working in the hospital's emergency room. And the protagonist's doctor also has more color in his life, as he has a baby coming, and Dong Jiang congratulates him, after which she gets another client for the company. Mile Mang will use the nickname that the protagonist gave as her name, Kim Saram, which, in a free translation made by myself, is Human Ken. The god girl took care of several details, such as the appearance that we had already noticed and keeping the man's cell phone with battery power for more than 3 months, so that the protagonist could read the message he had never sent. Na Jina is with Cha Juik at her house, and the woman is very happy to be in the top 10. It turns out that she ventured into another genre besides romance, and it seems to have worked out. When the man goes to kiss her, she hides it and doesn't let him. However, later, the two go out for a drink, and they end up kissing. The next day, Cha Juik starts attending family dinners as Na Jina's boyfriend. The protagonist is surprised when she discovers that Sun Jiang already knew him. During dinner, Na Jina says that everyone who accompanied Mile Mang and Dong Jiang knows about their love and everything they've been through. Later, when Cha Juik and Na Jina are talking, he comments about her being his first love, and the woman knows that's not true, so the man explains his concept of first love. Each love begins with something very unique, not limited to just one person, and will always be different, no matter how many times you fall in love, so being that way, it is her first love. Meanwhile, the protagonist asked that as soon as her lover arrived home, he would call her, and Mile Mang followed the woman's request to the letter. Then she instructed him to take a shower and then call, so the man did, and while they were talking, he fell asleep, just like humans do. When she falls asleep, the protagonist ends up in the garden, and the girl explains that this is just a dream. She wanted to show her uniform to Dong Jiang and the flower that Mile Mang has become. The protagonist is grateful for all the things God has done for her, and the girl says that Dong Jiang's story isn't over yet and the man's is just beginning. At work, Mile Mang ends up meeting the husband of a pregnant woman he had treated in the emergency room, and the man thanks him for saving his wife and child. And in the office, Cha Juik talks to the protagonist about the platform's new novel, called Misfortune, at his disposal. He wants to find the author and bring him to the company. However, the girl doesn't want to become a celebrity, so she changes the subject and says goodbye. At Mile Mang's house, the two are watching the sky when several shooting stars begin to pass by, so each one makes a wish, and the man reveals that his is to marry the protagonist. What did you think of this season? I hope you enjoyed the summary. Leave your suggestions in the comments and subscribe. If you liked the video, like and share to help me. Until next time.